What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is David Hanlon, aka the Laptop Legend, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about some of the crazy plays from today as well as what I'm looking at for tomorrow and just my general thoughts on some of these stocks that I'm trading, because hopefully my insights from the last 4-5 years of trading can help you guys be more prepared for tomorrow and make more money. That's ultimately my goal here. I finished today. It was actually a slower day. I made, I think, like $4,400 something. I forget the exact total. But the afternoon was like painstaking. I'm gonna go into why that was a little bit. We did have one really nice breaking news play. I called out in the Discord. I think it ran about 100% from where I called it out. So that was pretty nice. But as always, I piked that one. I actually didn't take enough size on that either, so I really didn't make as much as I should have or probably could have on that play. But it is what it is, and it's just it's one of those things where you can't always nail them. So as long as you got the consistency. Also, I gotta give myself a shout out. Yesterday was actually my 100th green day in a row. So today was my 101st, I think, 101st green day in a row. So that's pretty epic. My last red day was April 21st. And I'll go into that also a little bit too. So that's just a pretty cool milestone. I'm very grateful to be at this point. And it's amazing what following your rules can do and really managing risk on every single play you go into. And lastly, I just want to give a quick shout out to Tran for his record day of over $7,000, and Bob for his record day. I don't know what the grand total was, but over $20,000. Bob killing it. He's with us, on the mic in pre-market and after hours, and just epic, man. I really love our community, and if you are one of the people in there, I really appreciate you guys a lot. It's been an honor to witness how this thing has grown. So I appreciate all you guys, and without further ado, let's dive into my laptop and talk about some of these stocks. All right, guys, so I'm here on my laptop, and this is the chart for AVVH. And again, I just want to pull this up. I've had it up the last couple of days just to show you guys how incredibly great the risk to reward is when you get charts that have really nice basing action like this, and they have pending catalysts and no dilution. The combination of those things are just such a recipe for success. And I really, I should have gone in a lot bigger on this one. I'm kind of disappointed in how I played this, but it had another beautiful push today. Came out of nowhere. Again, this thing probably breaks those highs at some point. It probably does. I mean, it's beautiful. I don't want to get too hyped now. Hopefully it'll have some more basing and won't go straight up there, because I can't, buy huge share size here. But it's pretty exciting, man. I'm very excited about AVVH and what's to come over the next, I don't know, couple of weeks, couple of months on that one. I mean, you can see it just shot up at the end here. I was able to catch a little bit of that momentum for a day trade, but nothing too crazy. I would say probably the craziest OTC ticker of the day was DFTC. And this one ran really hard in the morning, just out of nowhere. Got a little bit choppy, but then pushed for another leg higher. And I mean, you can see, even if you missed this initial run up, I mean, there were some nice dip buys down here. Even if you buy this breakout at 5, I mean, it ran from 5 to 6.5. You take any type of size on that, that's still a pretty nice gain, man. Some of these volume candles are 500K. So, this was a pretty nice play. I definitely made a decent amount on this one. I don't remember exactly how much off the top of my head, but this was a nice play. And, overall on this one, like, we get kind of a big spike. And then probably just a fade off, if I had to guess. But again, we had that one, what was it, PGLO? Yeah, so this one had a crazy day too. So potentially this one can as well. I don't expect it to. Again, like I didn't expect PGLO to, but you got to keep it on your radar. Now, it did fade off a lot more towards the end of the day. DFTC one more time, yeah. But, maybe it kind of held those gains, so we'll see what happens on this one. I'm not too excited about it, but, it's worth keeping on your radar. I do want to go over, I'm trying to remember the ticker, guys. Oh, my goodness. All right, well, I guess I'll come back to that one. The one that I really want to talk about is actually a listed stock, and I know normally I talk about OTCs, but this stock was incredible. This was Bob's best stock on the day. This was how he got to over 20K. He got this like entire run up in pre-market. Absolutely nailed this here with pretty big size. And then it had some really nice consolidation. Broke out of that in normal market hours. Ripped up and then formed kind of a really nice wedge here, if I had to say. I'll show you guys right here. I would say this is a pretty nice wedge, man. Pretty nice wedge. And, you know, it broke out of that, got really tight there. Honestly, broke out of that. I wasn't really paying attention to this one. Otherwise, I probably would have longed it here, at least taken a stab at it. I probably would have sold too early. But just really nice, you know. And then another mini wedge here on the continuation. I'm trying to zoom in. How do you zoom in on this thing? Oh, you can't zoom in if you have a line tool? Golly, that's so annoying. There you go. My goodness. Yeah, so again, you can see here. Let me get that tool back again. This would have been the add point, or, you know, if you missed the initial add, this would be where you get in, kind of in this area. You get a nice rip on that big green candle, and then you get some consolidation, some tighter range, holding those highs. Well, I guess holding those lows, making higher lows, and then, you know, you rip to new highs off of that, and it continues to run. So this is typically how stocks do that. And if you missed the first entry, this would be a great place to look to get in on that. And, you know, obviously the stop is below that level. And this actually, you know, this was a pretty nice run, guys. But I actually call out in the Discord up here, you got to really be careful on these plays, because once you get really aggressive, if they keep running on the front side, you're going to make a ton of money. But as soon as it's backside, you're going to be aggressive, and you're just going to give it all back on paper cuts. And I said that when the price was like 28 bucks. I thought maybe, okay, maybe it dumps to, you know, 22 or something and goes for a bounce and then fails or something like that. This literally did not bounce a single time all day long. And I'm going to have to put this in my chart database, because this thing is actually out of this world. I mean, look at this dump, guys. Not a single point on this chart does it bounce more than like $1.50 a share, and it dumps from almost $29 down to 10. I mean, that is insane. I actually had a few dip buys in here. I think I started around this area. I think I got some here, and I think on that candle too. Luckily, I didn't, you know, use too much size, so I was able to get out. I think actually with a profit on this thing overall, but it was just so ugly every time. It's like a waterfall, you know, it just makes a new lower low. It never actually was able to just break up and make a new higher high. Every single time you see, it's just like a lower low, a dump, lower high. It tries to break above here and then just fails and fades off. And what's so weird about this is that it traded a ridiculous amount of volume. This thing traded like 169 million volume on the day. And it's like a 2 million float. So to me, it really doesn't add up how something like this can ultimately end up dumping this far without bouncing. I really don't understand. And there's a lot of traders who are also confused about it. I don't know. I feel like it's manipulation, but you know, it is what it is, man. This is just one of those things where you got to take advantage of it while it's there, and when it's proving that it's incapable, man, just get out of the way. And you couldn't even short this thing because there were no shares to short, not even on center point. So kind of wild. But I mean, there's some really nice wedge entries on this thing, man. I'm really a fan of this pattern. I'm really a fan of it. It works really nicely. It works really nicely. So, you know, look for these wedges, guys. They are my absolute favorite long setup at this point. Just, you know, nailing those entries. So look for those. Let's see what else. Yeah, so ILUS, guys. I do want to talk about this stock, just because I mentioned it on the watch list yesterday. If I go to, I think 5-day, probably 5-minute, might be a little bit easier, just to show you guys. So I mean, this stock is actually doing what we want it to. So it did have some pretty ugly sell-offs today. You know, some nice bounces, some sell-offs again, but ultimately, this thing really is holding its gains very, very nicely. Now, it is, I guess, technically now at this point under the breakout level, but I don't think that's too important. I think the fact that it's holding its gains near these highs, to me, that's actually a pretty bullish thing for now, at least. You know, I feel like if this thing were going to panic, it would have done it, you know, already. Now, that's not to say tomorrow we can't, you know, break this level right here, 16.5, and have a massive panic down to 13.5 or something like that. I could totally see that happening. But if we go sideways for a couple more days, I really do like this thing. I don't want a line there. Sorry, my bad. Undo, there we go. I'm still learning how to use this thing for you guys. There we go. Yeah, so you can see, guys, I mean, it ripped up. Again, had a nice extension, and now we're getting lower volume, and we're getting tighter candles, which to me indicates, again, that the selling volume is starting to dry up. And if it does that long enough, it'll start to trend up here, and then it's going to have an explosive breakout. Now, again, if it goes into a panic, okay, that happens. You know, that's also not unlikely. So I'm just going to keep waiting and respond to the price action as it unfolds. But again, I just want to re-emphasize this. DPLS did a very similar thing right down here. So, you know, this was obviously a huge day where it had a huge panic, but it ended up doing a very similar thing in regards to kind of right at this breakout area, it consolidated. And, you know, this is kind of the candle that we got today on ILUS. So theoretically, you know, this thing could go sideways for a few more days, look like this. If I see this with fading volume, that is a really good sign that it's going higher, and I will force myself to buy shares and sell them 3 or 4 days later. I'm always very bad at being patient on plays like this, but I will force myself, and I'm making this pinky promise with you guys. There you go. You gotta kiss it, and there you go. All right, we made that promise. So if ILUS does what DPLS did there, I will buy some in my Roth IRA and be patient and let this run, see if it can go to 30, see if it can go to 40, because that would be epic. Now, based on kind of percentage runs here, I guess this did kind of run from 12 to 20, so maybe we get from 20 to 30. I mean, maybe it happens. Maybe it goes 20 to 24, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm looking for, guys. So if there's a panic, I'll look to dip by it. But I'm kind of hoping this just consolidates here and then goes higher, because if it does, it'll be a nice breakout, get a nice run, and then have an even better panic for a nice, better dip by later. So that's what I'm hoping for on ILUS. Obviously, if any big catalysts come out, that will change everything. So we could get an update with news at any point, guys. It could come out tomorrow, and maybe that spikes the stock, or maybe there's a sell the news phenomenon that I already talked about. So just be aware of all these things. But you know, that's kind of what my thoughts are on that chart. Now, the breaking news play of the day was SWRM, and you can see, guys, they've had a decent amount of times where it's done this, and you can see here this actually had a day 2. So we'll see if SWRM wants to have a day 2 after this run. But if I go here, I mean, look at that, guys. Look at that. Look at that epic run. And again, I did buy some shares on this one. The spread was a little weird. I'm not sure. I can try to pull it up real quick. I got so many orders, it's hard to find. All right. SWRM. Where did I first buy? Yeah, that's crazy. My first buy on this was, I got filled 50,000 shares at 01015. So I bought right there. And again, guys, seriously, I am almost always the first person to buy an OTC break. Like my entry, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but I swear I always buy right at the bottom of these spikes, but I always sell way too soon. So I guess I'm giving you guys the shares up here, and then it runs, you know, twice as far from there. But it is what it is. But this was a nice one that I did call out, and it did close actually a lot stronger than I even realized. I wasn't really paying attention to that, but that did close really strong there. So this is worth keeping on watch for a day 2 for sure. The news on this stock was actually something related to Dogecoin, and you know, Dogecoin people are always fanatical about their Dogecoin. They are, yeah, Doge Labs announces advisory agreement with DOGE-1 Moon project. Yeah, I mean, for their SpaceX DOGE-1 mission to the moon. That actually, now that I'm reading it, that's actually, I guess that could, people could, you know, that could maybe give this thing legs. They're working potentially on, you know, the Doge mission to the moon. I know that involves Elon Musk, so potentially if this news gets around more, it could see another second leg, which would be epic. Now, to speak of second legs that failed, PSRU, guys, this was a really disappointing chart. But again, you know, I did warn you guys, this kind of is to be expected, because you don't really see any crazy day 2s. I mean, show me a day here where it spikes big and then spikes big again on day 2. Like big day 1 on very little volume, huge dump, and it just dies, right? You get a big spike here and then it just dies. That's just a wick. It dies in one day. This one, there's a gap up, or maybe that's just on no volume. Yeah, I probably won't even look at that. But I mean, if you keep going here, there's a big spike up, comes back down on day 2. This one, big spike up, but instantly wicks down. You know, big spike up, instantly wicks down. Big spike up, instantly wicks down. So, I mean, there's not much really great in terms of this chart history. The fact that it was beaten down did let it have a run yesterday. But honestly, the only play on this today was just a quick dip buy. And I did get one of those. I guess the only other play, potentially, you know, would be when you get a chart that looks like this and you get some consolidation. I gotta zoom in a little bit. You know, you get a chart that looks this clean, guys. It's a pretty easy breakout. I did call this one out in the Discord, but you know, just kind of look at this right here, guys. It's not really a wedge, but I mean, it's holding a pretty clean channel there. And typically, when you get something that does that and it breaks out to the upside, it at least sees a nice little pop. And you know, that's kind of what happened on here. You can see it breaks over that line and then, you know, sees at least a nice little run. So you could buy what at 8.2 there and sell it at 9.2 or something. So I mean, even if you don't get that far, so buy at 8.2, sell it 8.8 or something. That's still a decent gain. You know, I'd say that's still a decent gain. You could probably still squeeze a 10% gain out of this thing. So I'm a fan of that. And we actually, this is kind of similar to what we saw on, oh God, what is the chart, guys? Literally just looked at it. SWRM, you know, midday, where you get something. I'm pretty sure I call this one out too, where it just holds a base really well. It's not breaking down at all. Again, you know, if I don't know why you can't zoom or move it if you have the cursor tool. Someone is an idiot for thinking of it like that. You can see it. I mean, it's holding a base like pretty nicely. So when it actually breaks out past that, it sees a nice pop, and that's very typical. So just look for these. You know, look for these charts. If you see a runner that spikes up and then sees a big dump but goes perfectly sideways for several hours, like consider taking an entry when it starts breaking out over that. Because that's a pretty good indication that it's going to go higher. And again, I'm still learning as a trader, you know, all about these consolidation things. I didn't understand why they were so important before. I'm not sure what I'm clicking on here. I didn't understand why it was so important before, and now I do, man. Like, charts don't go straight up. Consolidation is healthy, and buying after consolidation is the best risk reward because you just risk the bottom of the consolidation. Versus like chasing into a spike, that's a great way to get burned as a beginner. So like these are the best setups, honestly. So these are the things you should really be focusing on if you can as a beginner. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's pretty much it for now. AVRI, still no updates on this one yet. Again, the spread is just massive, so it's not going to do anything until news comes out. But once it does, like, I don't want to be chasing on the ask, so I've still got my 10,000 shares of this one. I might try to get more if I can pick them up on the bid, but you can see volume is just so incredibly light, man. It's just crazy. So this thing could easily explode. Keep an eye on it. And then the last thing is actually BABA, bro. BABA, TCHY, all these, I guess not all these, I guess those two combination of stocks, they had just like a crazy grind up towards the end of the day. And these uptrends are so infuriating to try to fight. And it really reminded me of the dump on that other stock. I literally cannot remember the name of it for the life of me. INDP, that ticker refuses to stay in my brain all day long. But like, at a certain point, you just gotta stop fighting the trend. When it's just obvious, it will not do another thing. So like, a lot of people are trying to dip buy this because they're thinking like, my goodness, you know, this thing has, this thing dumped all the way from 29 down to 16. This thing has to bounce here. But it kept proving that it was so weak. And every time you're trying to catch the bottom. And for me, at least, it just gave me a headache, man. And it was the exact same thing on TCEHY and on BABA. Like they were just grinding up relentlessly, man. Like TCHY, you can see it kind of triple bottomed here, and then from there just straight up. BABA, pretty similar thing, man. I mean, look at this uptrend. It continued into after hours. I mean, literally, it just would not break down. If it gets a little too overextended, there's a small pullback, but then it just rips again. And you know, if you try to shorten this, it just drains so much mental energy, man. So I would say really be careful of fighting the trend. That's my advice from today, because it left me with a fatty headache. But that's pretty much it, guys. You know, TCHY, I love scalping this thing. Tomorrow I'll be watching to see what it does. I feel like it potentially could see a gap up, you know, and a bounce off of this. It's really a weird chart, man. It really is a weird chart, but I think it came down towards that support area, so hopefully it starts moving back up, and you know, we repeat the whole process over again. So we'll see what happens, but that is it. I would say keep an eye on SWRM, because if that news with, you know, the Doge Moon project gets out, it could potentially see some nice continuation, especially after the nice close it has. So that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, let's grow better together. Bebé, dime por qué te mientes. No puedes esconder todo lo que tú por mí sientes.